Hello, Phantom Fam, and welcome to the last episode of Halloweek. As always, I'm Nat.
Oh, and I'm Kate.
And you are listening to Wading into the Void. Alright, so let's go straight into our Halloween oracle. We're not fucking around today. I'm hungry, and I'm ready to go. So we're going to the Halloween oracle by Mrs. Stacy DeMarco, and the card for today is Zombie,
Oh.
which is pretty cool. The picture's really cool. It's like a barren field with a full moon, and in front of it is like a headstone and an arm coming out.
That's fun for Halloweek.
Mm-hmm. So, zombie represents control. And one of the most frightening aspects of the idea of zombieism is the idea of our souls and consciousness being trapped inside a body that does not do our bidding, but someone else's. Another is the idea of being buried alive, the fate of some, it is said, who get trapped in already dead bodies. Should the zombie step unsteadily into your life, it's time to look at the concept of control. Do you want to control everything, leaving little to free expression? Do you choose partners who are not your equals so that they are more easily manipulated and changed to your liking? Or do you allow that to happen to you? If you're not living your most authentic life, it's time to look at why and how to change that. So, I guess, don't be a control freak, and if somebody you think is manipulating or controlling you in some way, shape, or form, get yourself out of that situation, because that is not good for you. Unless you enjoy somebody else having some type of control over your life because it reduces stress and makes you feel better, and you don't feel like it's hurting you in any way, shape, or form, then go for it. I don't give a fuck.
I feel like a zombie.
I also feel like a zombie. I'm so
We're
tired.
guys.
Yeah.
so tired.
Today we're going to wrap up our major suspects, new and old, and perhaps we might have some haunts or some other fun tidbits of information.
Yeah.
And then I kind of want to discuss Halloweek as a whole, so let's get straight into it.
Okay, let's do it.
So our second to last suspect that we're going to talk about today is Aaron Kosminski.
That's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful because he is a Polish-born immigrant, so his name is Polish.
Oh, that makes so much sense then.
So we basically don't know exactly when Aaron arrived in London, but a lot of people think it was sometime around 1880 to 1881. His father was a tailor, and his brother was also a tailor and lived in the area. So we can assume they probably all immigrated around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't know about his life in London at all, but the only thing we know come from medical records.
All right.
And according to these medical records, they state his occupation as hairdresser, but a lot of people stated that he was out of work for many, many years, so we don't actually know if he had a job.
Okay. Why do we have so many, hairdressers?
I don't know, because we had the barber, and now we have a hairdresser. That's really, like I said, Demon Barber of Fleet Street, Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, I guess so.
But one of the most important things of note about Aaron, and what people most know about him, is that he was extremely mentally ill. So by the mid 1890s, he had been displaying severe symptoms of mental illness and was admitted to Mile End Old Town Workhouse on July 12th, 1890. And his address was given as 3 Science Square. I don't know where that is in relation to anything, but that's what they said on his medical records.
All right.
His stay was relatively short originally, and he was discharged 3 days later on July 15th, 1890. However, he was readmitted in early 1891, and at that time, his address was given as 16 Greenfield Street, which was the home of his brother-in-law, Morris Lubnowski, who was married to Aaron's sister, Matilda. So he seems to be the type of person who's consistently moving living situations and has a pretty thick history of mental illness. So at this time that he was readmitted, he was basically certified as insane.
Awesome.
And on February 7th, 1891, he was transferred to the Middlesex County Lunatic Asylum at Colney Hatch.
All right.
And at this lunatic asylum, they had an admission book, which basically writes down all the information of any patients that they're intaking. And they keep a lot of records in this book. So, in the admission book, it gives his age as 26, his occupation as hairdresser, and the supposed cause of his insanity is listed as unknown. Although self-abuse was later added, which is interesting. And his nearest known relative was listed as Wolf Abrams, who's
I thought you were just going to say it was listed as Wolf, and I'm like, I understand
that would be
where
crazy.
The mental issues are coming from.
Wolf Abrams, who is apparently his brother, and apparently I was also reading something else that I didn't add in, but I guess I'll make note of it now, is that the family occasionally went by the name Abrahams instead of Kosminski. I don't know why, if they perhaps had different mothers or different fathers, but there was a time where Kosminski did, I don't think he technically got arrested, but he went to court over having a dog that wasn't muzzled in a highly pedestrian area, and they named, or he said his last name was Abrahams. So this family is going by 2 different names, but it doesn't really make any sense. But of significance in the admission book, it states that he was not a danger to others, which, if he had been Jack the Ripper, or if he was Jack the Ripper, that would have been a huge omission by whoever was admitting him.
Just a little bit. They're like,
just
oh my
god,
bit. He's the most, not offensive person ever.
Well,
he only kills people on the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
What murder?
What murder? But the admission book also lists the following facts about him, which are attributed to quote-unquote a medical man, whatever that means. But this is word for word what they said about the fucking shit he does. He declares that he is guided and his movements altogether controlled by an instinct that informs his mind. He says that he knows the movements of all mankind and refuses food from others because he is told to do so. And he eats out of the gutter for the same reason.
I'm sorry, what the fuck?
He eats out of the gutter. The records also quote a witness identified as Jacob Cohen of 51 Carter Lane, St. Paul's, EC. And this is what Jacob said. He goes about the streets and picks up bits of bread out of the gutter and eats them. He drinks water from the tap and he refuses foods at the hand of others. He took up a knife and threatened the life of his sister. He is very dirty and will not be washed. He has not attempted any kind of work for years. This guy's crazy. He's eating out of the gutters like a stray fucking animal.
This is fucking terrible. I'm sorry. So, like, he's fucking nasty, okay?
But he did say he threatened his sister's life with a knife. So maybe the admissions book is wrong. Maybe he did have some violent tendencies. Clearly, he's off his rocker if he's like, eating out of the gutter.
They're like, he's on a very specific diet, okay?
He's on the gutter diet? Damn. Go crazy, I guess.
A very specific mental health plan, okay? It might seem a little odd to outsiders, but
he seems very, like, paranoid.
Unfucking stable? I think so.
Well, he's like, he doesn't accept food from other people. He'd rather get it from the fucking gutters.
Which
That's
is worse.
So weird. Yeah. So, Aaron Kosminski spent just over 3 years at Colney Hatch, and he was described as being extremely deluded or morose, rather difficult to deal with on account of the dominant character of his delusions, incoherent, apathetic, excitable, indolent but quiet, and clean in habits, dull and vacant.
No.
All of these things are all over the place. All of these things are all over the place. But this guy is out of his damn mind.
He's fucking nuts.
Completely incoherent. Nobody understands fucking anything he says. Like, he has no clue what's going on around him. I'm interested to hear, like, what his delusions exactly were, but it doesn't say. So, he was actually transferred to another asylum, Leavesden Asylum, on April 19th, 1894, and he would spend the remaining 25 years of his life and dying there on March 24th, 1919. Okay, so this basically gives his background. He's batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Living from place to place, asylum, and okay, how do we get to him actually being the killer?
Yes, please explain.
Let's talk about who suspected him. Who even brought it up? Like, maybe this crazy dude did it. Well, multiple very important people that we've talked about suspected him.
Oh?
So, starting off, Melville McNaughton, in his 1894 memoranda, he stated that Kosminski was... Here's my thing. Before I say anything, I feel like these people are very racist towards Jewish people. I don't know why. I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't that just like the thing for the time, is people just fucking suck?
I mean, basically.
I mean, people are still terrible to Jewish people now, so.
That's true. But, so, Melville was assistant chief constable of Scotland Yard, to the CID.
Okay.
So he's an important figure in the CID. So this is what he said about Kosminski. It starts off by saying, yeah, he's a Polish Jew and resident in Whitechapel.
Perfect.
This is why this is his reasoning why he thinks Christ. It's him.
He's like, yeah, he's Jewish. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Top suspect.
It says, he said, this man became insane owing to many years' indulgence in solitary vices. He had a great hatred of women, especially of the prostitute class, and had strong homicidal tendencies. He was removed to a lunatic asylum about March 1889. Okay, so where did he get this information from? Well,
the street corner.
He basically, he doesn't say.
Oh.
He's just like, this guy hates prostitutes. So, okay, interesting. But Kosminski is of particular interest because in addition to Melville, the two highest ranking officers with direct responsibility also considered him a strong suspect for the Jack the Ripper murders.
Okay.
So, in 1910, Sir Robert Anderson, who was the assistant commissioner throughout the murders, wrote in his memoirs, I don't know why all of them have little diaries, but he said,
it was classy.
quote, undiscovered murders are rare in London, and the Jack the Ripper crimes are not in that category. I will merely add that the only person who had ever had a good view of the murderer unhesitatingly identified the suspect the instant he was confronted with him, but he refused to give evidence against him. In saying that he was a Polish Jew, I am merely stating a definitely ascertained fact. So they're really sticking hard with saying Polish Jew. And I don't know how many people were Polish and Jewish in Whitechapel at the time. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to place blame on Kosminski because he's crazy.
I mean, it is possible that they're like, you know what, maybe we'll use the racist card. Just to get this guy off the streets, because he's fucking nuts. He's eating bread out of the gutter. He's
so
scaring the people on the street.
So bad.
He stinks. Like, don't pull the racist card, okay? But this guy, rightfully so, did not need to be on the streets. Okay?
No, definitely not. But it has nothing to do with his race or anything. He's just out of his damn mind. But, so... In 1987, Chief Inspector Donald Swanson's copy of Anderson's memoir was made public. Swanson was the officer who was tasked with assessing all the information on the Jack the Ripper case. And very few people had the same kind of comprehensive knowledge of the murders. So he knew a lot about the evidence, or lack thereof, I guess. But he basically knew everything that was going on with the case. Okay. And he and Anderson actually became pretty good friends. And when Anderson's memoir was published, he received his own personally signed copy.
Ooh,
the memoir is called The Lighter Side of My Official Life. Who the fuck cares about him? I don't know. But
that's an awful name.
I know.
Fucking book. The Lighter Side of My Official Life.
Swanson actually made annotations to Anderson's memoir and provided a little more information. So where Anderson, when he said somebody unhesitatingly identified the suspect, but refused to give evidence against him, Swanson basically says because the suspect was also a Jew and witness would be the means of murder being hanged, which he did not wish to be left on his mind. So...
Okay.
Basically they're saying because the witness was Jewish, they didn't want to provide evidence against Kosminski. So they're really just playing this horrible race card.
Okay.
Or just this hateful outlook on this. So
they're like, the Jewish people don't stick together. So for that reason...
No, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. They're like, oh, this person's not going to give us a statement because they're Jewish and protecting their kind, is basically what he just said.
No, I'm saying they're, like, trying to flip the script.
Oh.
Like, they don't stay together, they don't support each other. But, yeah, that's, like, they're shitty. How dare they?
Who? Who is saying this? Where did you get this from? I'm so confused.
My head.
Oh.
I'm saying that the police are like, we should pit these guys against each other with these annotations afterwards and say that because...
Oh. I see. So they're like, they have written documentation of, this person's not giving evidence because they're Jewish and this person's Jewish, and everybody would be like, well, what the heck? This person just murdered a bunch of people. It doesn't matter if they're also Jewish. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
I was
what I'm saying.
So lost. I was like,
You're like, help, please. I do not understand you.
But apparently they had a witness that instantly recognized Kosminski as being the person who murdered these people.
I mean, okay, he probably saw him eat something out of the fucking gutter, and then he saw him killing a woman later in the night. That will leave an impression.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, we've talked about this so many times throughout this entire week. Witness testimonies are basically not. Like, they have no valuable source.
Witness testimonies fucking suck, okay?
But a short time later, after... Oh, I skipped a sentence. So, following the witness's identification of the murderer, they brought him back to his brother's house in Whitechapel, and the city police kept him under constant surveillance. And then a short time later, he was taken to Stepney Workhouse, and from there he was sent to Colney Hatch. And then he died.
I was gonna say, and then he died.
And all Swanson ends with, like, all he says is, Kosminski was the suspect. That's his last fucking quote.
Wow, that's spectacular.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So...
That changed my life.
I know, right? So, basically, we have literally no evidence. Besides, this guy's crazy, he might have threatened someone with a knife, and somebody might have seen him kill someone while he was eating food out of the gutter.
This series is supposed to be about Jack the fucking Ripper, and instead we're hearing about some fucking insane person.
We hear about
bread out of the
gutter baby, Henry the Hawker. Like, this is silly. This is so silly. They're all so silly at this time.
A woman who crocheted flowers and
yes, I love
sold
her.
them, and a lady that got her freak on wearing a bonnet, and
oh yeah,
I'm just like, oh my god. We learned that Scotland Yard was not in fact for Natalie in Scotland or in fact a yard. It was a street.
Listen, alright, we are learning so many things, and we could talk about everything we've learned about at the end. But I want to talk about some forensic evidence against Kosminski.
Okay. Which
I might also discredit immediately after telling you about, but we'll talk about it. But forensic scientists believe that they finally figured out the identity of Jack the Ripper. And basically, they found these DNA samples on a stained silk shawl that the investigators apparently found next to the body of Catherine Eddowes, which, as we remember, was the fourth victim of Jack the Ripper. And according to the scientists, the shawl was speckled with what was claimed to be blood and semen. And
charming.
People tend to believe that it was from the killer. However, I don't know. We haven't had any semen evidence or anything that, like, pointed to them actually having sex. Yeah. So, I'll tell you what I think after we go through this. So, so the DNA evidence was published in a peer-reviewed journal, and the first genetic tests were conducted several years ago by someone named Jari Luhilainen. It's a long name. It's hard to pronounce.
Good effort. Good effort.
But they are a biochemist at Liverpool John Moores University in the United Kingdom. But upon getting the DNA evidence, they were like, I'm actually not going to release this. I'm going to wait for the big fuss to die down before submitting the results. Which is fucking dumb, but okay. And then an author, I don't know where these authors are deciding that they want to get involved in, like, forensics and police work. But this author, Russell Edwards, bought the shawl in 2007. Wonder how much that fucking cost.
I don't want to know.
And gave it to Luhilainen. And used the unpublished results of the test to identify Kosminski as the murderer in a 2014 book called Naming Jack the Ripper. But geneticists complained at the time that it was impossible to assess the claims because few technical details about the analysis of genetic samples from the shawl were available because he did not release it to the public.
Yeah.
And this is hilarious because they actually had a reproduction and sperm expert working on this.
I'm sorry.
Yes, a sperm expert. You heard that right.
I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yes.
Okay.
His name is David Miller, and he is an expert at the University of Leeds in the United Kingdom. And him and Luhilainen claim that, quote unquote, that this is the most systematic and most advanced genetic analysis to date regarding the Jack the Ripper murderers. However, because there's always a however, and this is where I'm like, okay, this shit is stupid. Because the test compared fragments of mitochondrial DNA, which, as we saw in the Walter Sicker investigation with Cornwell, mitochondrial DNA, you shared that DNA.
Shit.
Yeah, you share that DNA with what? What did we say? 5 to 10% of the people around you?
Yeah, because the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's common.
I mean, honestly, so is it like a location-based thing? Like where you're originally from? Because if he's Polish, it might show different results than somebody was born and raised in Whitechapel. So
like a
like an ancestry thing.
Yeah, an ancestry thing.
Yeah,
an evolutionary thing.
Yeah, because
very well could be. I mean,
basically what they say is so they retrieved samples from the living descendants of Eddowes and Kosminski, and the DNA matches that of a living relative of Kosminski, and we have to take that with a grain of salt, though, because it's based off of mitochondrial DNA. So it could just be somebody from that relative area in Poland or something. Like, it could have been anything, really. But the analysts suggest that the killer had brown hair and brown eyes, which agrees with the evidence from an eyewitness. well, although those characteristics are not very unique, a lot of people have brown eyes and brown hair. I have brown hair. Blue eyes were more common than brown in England. So that kind of brings the pool down a little bit of possible suspects. But,
that's still a fuck ton of people.
That's still a fuck ton of people. Especially with all the people that have immigrated to the area from all over the place. It could be anyone. Still. So, I'm basically gonna discredit this shit. I'm not even gonna read the rest of what was here, because half of the shit from their paper that they actually finally did publish, they used graphics with colorful boxes that overlap, basically like a Venn diagram, to show what type of DNA's sequence matched, rather than showing a complete scientific breakdown of the specific genetic variants that they identified and compared between. So they were basically this is for the people interested in true crime. This isn't for actual scientists who have an understanding of how DNA works. So they were essentially trying to create something that made it look conclusive that Kosminski was the killer. Yeah. Rather than do their due diligence as scientists and have a complete breakdown to try to match the identification properly to a specific percentage.
Are they fucking stupid?
Basically. But see, this is where, these authors who are coming in and spending money on shit just to prove their biased point is ruining everything. That's how we're going to lose credibility, lose information. It is just ruining the whole case. Because they're already going in with a specific bias, so of course they're gonna tell these people exactly who they're looking for, and they're gonna make their information match as much as possible to that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I'm not into it.
And then on top of that, people who criticize the Kosminski theory have pointed out that there's not even hard evidence that the shawl was even at the crime scene, and it could have become contaminated over the years. So somebody could have fucking jacked off on it when they owned it for the 50th time, or bought it for $50,000, because I'm sure it didn't cost a penny. I'm sure people were auctioning it and shit, and probably not taking care of it to preserve the DNA on it. So it's just frustrating.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's just so frustrating and annoying. And I know that this shit would not happen in modern day. They would have caught this killer so fucking quick. But
yeah, it's upsetting.
Yeah.
To say the least.
So we have had so many different types of DNA tests by multiple different people, and they all conclude something different. We have Kosminski is the killer. We have Walter Sickert is the killer. And then we have this last theory, this last suspect that people think, based off of this one genetic analysis of the letters, they believe that the murderer could have been a woman.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our last suspect. Yeah. All right, so throw away the name Jack the Ripper. We don't want that shit anymore. Do we want Jill the Ripper or Jane the Ripper?
I say Jill.
I like Jill.
Because, she's no Jane Doe, you know what I'm saying? She's Jill.
True. So
she made Jane Does.
Let's talk a little bit about basically the only female suspect. Her name is Mary Piercy. She was originally born Mary Eleanor Wheeler, and she was born in 1866. And basically not much is known about her early life, except that when she was 14, her father, Thomas Wheeler, was actually hanged on November 29th, 1880 at St. Albans Prison because he murdered a local farmer named Edward Anstey.
Okay.
It's very interesting. Basically, in his prison cell before he died, Thomas wrote a letter to the farmer's widow apologizing for the murder that he committed and basically asked for forgiveness and her prayers, and that he asked that his sins not be, quote-unquote, visited upon his wife or daughter. So he was basically like, okay, I murdered someone, but don't let that karma go on to my daughter.
Well, don't fucking kill people.
So, I don't know, it must be in the fucking family. But
some of it, like, some killers, like, their children that they've had, have had, like, kind of genetic similarities where things like that are concerned. So, but I would love an investigation on that.
Yeah, it's like nature versus nurture. But Mary in her late teens had a relationship with a carpenter named John Charles Percy. And although they never married, she took his last name and continued to use it even after they broke up. So Mary was known to suffer from pretty extreme depression and also drank very heavily.
How common. Okay.
Mm-hmm. She never worked and spent much of her time in the company of wealthy men.
Oh.
And one of these gentlemen friends, Charles Creighton, rented rooms for her at 2 Priory Street, Kentish Town, North London.
So this is a self-loathing thing.
This is... yeah. So...
interesting.
At this point, it seems like she's got sugar daddies.
She got something.
She's got something. It's not saying that she's having sex with them yet, right? So we can't say, oh, she is a sex worker.
I will jump to conclusions.
It seems like it's possible. But as soon as she moved into this room, she began to have an affair with a Mr. Frank Samuel Hogg, who is a furniture remover? Whatever that means.
He was a fucking mover?
Yeah. He's like a mover, I guess? I don't know. But he was actually married and had a daughter named Phoebe. And on the morning of October 24th, 1890, Mary asked a young boy to run an errand for her and deliver a note to Frank Samuel's wife, who was also named Phoebe. I don't know why the fuck they were all named Phoebe.
Oddly enough, the whole, like, junior thing was common for women at that time, too.
So, really? That's so interesting. But she invited them over for tea, basically. And at 7 p.m. that same day, a woman's body was found lying on the pavement in Crossfield Road by a man who was returning from work. The woman's head was wrapped in a cardigan, which a policeman removed to reveal the bloodstained face of Phoebe Hogg, the wife, so far. At the morgue, it was discovered that she had fractured her skull and had a large wound to the throat. And the wound was so severe that it had almost severed the head. Sound familiar?
Wow, I feel like I've heard this somewhere before.
So, an examination of the location where the body was found indicated that the murder had actually taken place somewhere else, and that she had moved the body to this location.
So she's strong, then.
I guess so. But later that evening, they found a heavily bloodstained area in Hamilton Terrace, which was about a mile from where the body had been discovered. Okay. And the following morning, the body of an infant was found. The child had died from suffocation.
Oh.
So Frank Hogg and his sister Clara heard about the woman's body, and they went to the police station to report that his wife had been missing. And Frank also sent Clara to see Mary and inquire if she had seen Phoebe. Mary denied having seen Phoebe, but agreed to accompany Clara to the morgue to see if the woman's body was in fact Phoebe. So I don't know why Frank seems to involve Mary in his personal life as he's having an affair with her. First of all, that's weird.
He's stupid, that's why.
That's just so weird to me. But at the morgue, Mary's behavior was very strange, and she was trying everything possible to stop Clara from actually identifying the body. And Clara obviously ended up identifying the body of Phoebe Hogg, and also, what is a pram? Oh, is that a baby carriage?
I believe so.
Oh, okay. So they found... Oh, man. So they actually found a baby stroller that was heavily bloodstained in Hamilton Terrace. So, yeah, that's really fucked up. That's so fucked up. I'm confused as to why it was bloodstained if the baby died from suffocation.
Well, if she,
unless she
had
murdered
killed the mother first.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
That's the only thing I can think.
Yeah. So... Oh, yes. Okay, so Clara identified the body as well as the stroller as being Phoebe's. And apparently a neighbor told police that she had seen Mary pushing the stroller with a large object in it on the evening of the murder. So for some reason, Mary's taking care of this child at some point in the night.
Interesting.
And she's like walking with the baby and something in the carriage. Or maybe there was no baby there. I don't know. But she has the stroller.
She sounds fucking cuckoo nuts, so...
Mm-hmm. So when Frank was told that Phoebe had been identified, he immediately confessed to having an affair with Mary. And so the police obviously were immediately suspicious of her and searched Priory Street and found bloodstains in the kitchen, along with a blood-stained poker and a carving knife. She also had 2 broken windows in the kitchen, which proved signs of a struggle. When questioned to what use the blood-stained poker and knife had been, Mary just said, "Killing mice, killing mice, killing mice."
Is she, the Flash? Because...
She's fucking exploding the mice. I don't know.
She's like...
But while her house was being searched, Mary actually just sat at the piano and was playing music. You know how fucking creepy that is?
That's so disturbing.
This lady is clearly insane.
Yeah, no, she has some problems.
But Mary was arrested, obviously, and charged with the murder of both Phoebes, Phoebe squared, and when her body...
Just say Phoebe squared.
I said Phoebe squared. But when her, her pockets and everything were searched, there was bloodstains found on her clothing. I don't know how they didn't fucking see that with her walking around saying, "Killing mice, killing mice, killing mice," and playing fucking... "Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey," on the piano. But, like, she was found wearing Phoebe's wedding ring.
And they were just like, nah. Not her.
I literally don't know. So, she was sentenced to hang, basically. Which, I mean, makes sense because she's fucking cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Literally.
What is? Oh, on her on her final evening, she asked her solicitor to place a personal advert in the Madrid newspaper, and the message read, "Me kept last wish of Mew. Have not betrayed Mew." And
I don't understand.
She refused to elaborate on the meaning of that and was definitely hanged. Like,
awesome.
December 23rd, 1890.
Awesome. Jesus Christ.
They named the hangman for some reason. I don't know why the fuck we would care about that, but they named the hangman as James Barry. James Barry! Oh no, I'm quaking in my boots. James Barry's gonna hang me. Anyways,
scary.
Madame Tussauds actually made a wax model of Mary Percy and purchased the stroller belonging to Frank Hogg. So,
of course they did.
For some reason they did that. I don't know why. But Mary was described as 5 feet 6 inches, 9 stone, with lovely russet hair and fine blue eyes. If you've seen a picture of this woman, let me tell you, look up a picture, look at the first fucking picture on the internet of her, and don't tell me that your bones don't fucking get a chill.
Hold on.
Hang on, I'll show you the picture.
Fuck me.
Do you see it?
She's terrifying.
She's so scary. Every other picture of her is like, she looks really pretty, she looks really fine. And then there's just this one picture where her eyes are fucking bugged out of her head. Her mouth is like open, but she has no emotion on her face. She looks completely fucking empty. And her eyes are so bright blue that the iris looks white. So it literally looks like she just has 2 dots in her eyes.
Are we 100% sure that this wasn't an anti-mortem picture?
I literally don't know. I didn't even think of that because she definitely looks fucking dead.
She definitely does.
Because if you look at this
time period,
if you look at the other picture of her that they have, her mouth is closed and she looks like a normal human and her eyes are not bugging out of her head. So maybe her eyes were popped out like that because of the suffocation from hanging. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Oh my god. Yeah, that's why that picture's so disturbing, because she's probably fucking dead.
Hold on, I'm gonna look something up.
Death picture. What is it called? Like death mask? They made a death mask of Mary Percy.
Anti-mortem portraits. So...
let me see.
These portraits this photography started in 1839 and ended in, like, the 1930s.
So, yeah. I looked up
totally
Mary
possible.
Percy anti-mortem pictures, and that's, like, everything that comes up. Oh my god, that's so disturbing. She looks...
yeah, Natalie's like, hey, everyone, go look at this picture of a fucking dead lady.
I didn't know! She looks so pretty, though, alive.
I love that I had to make that suggestion.
Well, let me just tell you this, because you just said, like, she has to be fucking strong to be able to, like, move this body, like, a mile away. Sir Melville Macnaghten said, quote unquote, "I have never seen a woman with a stronger physique."
She's strong.
She's fucking strong. And, yeah, they did take, like, they did do a DNA evidence test, and it is also very likely that it's mitochondrial DNA. They used the saliva from the stamp and sealing gum in the Openshaw letter, and from that DNA, they concluded that it was a possibility that it was female. But that's about as far as it got on the DNA. But either way, even if she's not Jack the Ripper, the way that she killed Phoebe is very similar. This is the first person who legitimately had a victim that was similar to the Jack the Ripper victims. Mm-hmm. Because H.H. Holmes, like, he was killing people. Yeah, he was around at that time, but the way he killed people was just not like that.
Yeah, no. I could definitely see this more so than anything.
Mm-hmm. But also people were like, oh, well, oh yeah, so he was like, this guy, his name is William Stewart, he has a book, he's another fucking author, named, the book is Jack the Ripper, A New Theory, where he was like, okay, Percy is the person, we got this. So we have the savage throat cutting to the spine, obviously. Yeah. Killing in private, and later dumping the body in a public place, which he believed was the Ripper's MO.
I mean, I could totally get on board with that.
And, okay, so that would explain why no witnesses heard any of the Ripper's victims' screams. Mm-hmm. However, that completely contradicts all the medical evidence that we have, which show the victims were murdered exactly where they were found, because they had blood all around them, and their bodies were fresh, even, like, within 10 minutes of somebody last seeing them.
Yeah.
So, my thought was, do people know what chloroform is at this age? Because if he did something like that, where he made them pass out or become unconscious without hurting them, because they would have seen, like, blunt force trauma or something, you know? If he had something like chloroform, however, they would just pass out, and he could do whatever he wants to the bodies without them screaming and waking up.
And I believe without high doses, it's not... Well, it probably wouldn't be traceable at that time regardless.
Exactly.
But what I was going to say is, in high doses, chloroform will actually leave chemical burns around the mouth. Mm-hmm. And it didn't look like on any of the victims that there were any type of chemical burns.
Well, I mean, one of the victims didn't even have a fucking face, so...
That is also
and another victim had cuts all over her face, so...
Yeah.
We wouldn't know, but also if he was aware, if he had some type of, like, chemical knowledge somehow, perhaps it wouldn't have even been an issue. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure, my dude, but I really enjoyed hearing those two. The first one just for the sheer audacity.
The fucking gutter diet. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, honestly, I feel like this last one is probably one of the strongest possibilities that we went over. So.
Honestly, I think so, too, just because this seems like I've been saying this whole time, this seems like a scorned person. They are not happy about their lives, and they're taking it out on the people around them that either maybe directly match who they are or are matching this, like, trophy person that they hate in life. So, like, where I said, oh, this person might have a mother who was in sex work, who was an alcoholic. That would be the trophy person. Or, in this case, Mary was an alcoholic. Mary could have been a sex worker. It seems like it was slightly implied. she was hanging around these rich men who were buying her rooms to stay in, and she didn't work. She wasn't getting anything, like, clearly out of it unless she was giving something up in return. You know?
Yeah, they didn't have Social Security back then, so...
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
no, I think it's
I don't know.
Chance.
Yeah, so what do you guys think? I think that one's the most interesting one.
I completely agree.
And I thought the Kosminski DNA test was going to be a lot better. That's why I was like, oh, I'll wait for this person. But then I was like, oh, this is mitochondrial, just like sicker. So, fuck
it's
that.
okay. It's okay.
He was definitely crazy, but I don't think he was Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, no, he was fucking nuts. But, it kind of sounds like he was going through some shit, and that doesn't make you a killer. It just makes you need help. So, he was cuckoo crazy, and he just didn't have the proper help he needed at that time, and he got very cuckoo crazy and started eating literally shit-covered bread from the gutter. So,
yeah.
What do you say we move on to a more lighthearted way to end this Halloweek series?
Go for it. It's all you, homie.
All right. So, we're going to talk about some ghosts. The whole, original purpose of the show, to talk about ghosts. And we're actually going to talk about some of the victims possibly showing up as spirits in current day.
Interesting.
Yes, and Nat was a gem. She sent me this lovely article, which then made me fall down a rabbit hole to find more articles to back this up. So, the first spirit we are going to talk about is the ghost of Mary Ann or Polly Nichols. So, the first canonical victim.
Okay.
That is attributed to Jack the Ripper. So, as you may remember, she was married in Bucks Row in Whitechapel on the 31st of August in 1888. And one thing you should know now is that the street has been renamed to Durward Street.
Durward Street?
Durward Street.
What the hell? Okay, sure.
And one author, because that's a common theme in this series apparently, is authors, named Elliot O'Donnell, who is famous for writing and seeing ghosts, went out on a little Jack the Ripper ghost hunt, one can say. And he, in his book, described seeing an apparition that was typically seen on Durward Street. And this apparition was typically described as a huddled figure like that of a woman, emitting from all over in a ghostly light, frequently to be seen laying in the gutter.
Huh?
Yeah, so basically he's saying he's seeing the ghost of poor Mary Ann Nichols post her murder laying in the side of the road. So, not very exciting. Could just be a homeless person who has a nightlight and this guy's ooh, ghost. But, that's what we have for Mary Ann. So I hope that she has moved on to whatever's next and is living the peaceful life that she deserved.
I hope so. Yeah.
I hope that for all of these victims, that they aren't lingering around in some capacity, kind of unfulfilled because there was never a solid answer to what had happened to them.
Yeah.
So next we're going to talk about the ghost of Annie Chapman, the second Ripper victim, who was killed on the 8th of September in 1888. And her ghost is seen in a couple different spots around Whitechapel, specifically on Hanbury Street.
Okay.
Oddly enough, for this one, we're going to be talking about another Chapman.
Interesting.
A man named Mr. Chapman, I could not find his first name whatsoever, lived at 29 Hanbury Street, which is kind of the exact spot where this murder took place, but then was, of course, built upon later as time progressed.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that on numerous occasions, over the spread of, like, several years, he saw a pair of people, a man and a woman, who would constantly walk along, like, a pathway. And just, like, disappear. Like, basically into, like, a brick wall. Because, of course, this kind of seems like a residual haunting, more so where these people are just kind of repeating things over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that these apparitions would actually occur in the very early hours of the morning, specifically in the autumn months.
Okay.
Which oddly fits that time of when Annie Chapman was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, disemboweled. And it's just kind of like a strange coincidence that this man who shares the same last name is apparently seeing the apparition of Annie Chapman.
Yeah.
But please keep in mind that, like, he did not describe in detail what these apparitions looked like, so he could just be seeing some long since past couple just showing up and walking about in their deathly happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because it's not like the lady ghost was fucking running away from the man ghost.
Exactly. They were more on, like, a leisurely stroll.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem to me like Annie Chapman would be going on a leisurely stroll with her murderer after she was killed, but what do I know? Mm-hmm. I sound like such a skeptic right now, and it's kind of freaking me out a little bit, but we're gonna keep pushing on. And later in the 1930s, apparently a couple witnesses heard, like, someone being murdered at the site where Annie Chapman had been killed years and years ago. There was sightings of a headless ghost, but yeah, I don't know. They saw the headless fucking horseman.
I'm like, none of them were actually headless.
Yeah, no. So, like I'm saying, some of these things I'm like, more so it's just like a coincidence that it's happening at these same sites, but because of the brutal atrocities that were committed at these sites, spirits are usually drawn to situations like that in the afterlife. So I wouldn't be surprised if, like, spirits that had nothing to do with that area were kind of just drawn there in the afterlife and are kind of feeding off of that energy. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But, a lot of these sightings stopped when 29 Hanbury Street was demolished.
Interesting.
And apparently a brewery called Truman Brewery was built at this site afterwards. And the workers at this brewery report consistently each year on the anniversary of Annie's death that they'll see a ghostly figure kind of standing in the spot exactly where she was killed. And they just feel like a very cold, heavy, like, kind of energy in that area. Specifically on the night of her death. So that in and of itself is very interesting to me.
You know what? Sorry, what? Continue. I'll tell you after you've gone through these.
Okay. And oddly enough, like we said, you can spot Annie's ghost in a couple different places. Another one is the 10 Bells Pub, which is on the corner of Commercial Street and Fournier Street.
Pub food sounds so good.
But what's so special about this pub is that it's actually, according to some historical witnesses and things like that, it's the place where she kind of had her last drink that morning when she was murdered.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So, the owner, or the landlord, more so I should say, in the 1970s reported weird gusts of wind that seemingly just, like, came out of nowhere. And a radio that would consistently switch on and off.
Okay, here's my question.
Yes.
There weren't radios in 1888, were there?
No.
So how does this ghost know how to work a radio?
Hold on.
I'm just curious.
There radios in 1888, we'll say.
I don't think there were.
Radio began in 1888 when German physicist Heinrich Hertz demonstrated the existence of radio waves.
Yeah, but that's when they discovered radio waves.
Yes.
When was the first radio for commercial use or residential use created? Because I feel like that would have been years later.
I don't know the answer to that, but there were, what are those big phone things? A gramophone? That are kind of like vinyl records?
Yeah.
Like, maybe they were using that at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, but that wasn't live, so yeah, I don't know. I'm just wondering how this ghost was like, yes, I can touch these buttons, and they will act a fool in front of this dude.
I don't know if it's more so that or the
energy, just the energy
the
in
splurge
general.
Of energy, kind of short-circuiting the system a little bit.
I like the idea of her just learning,
Annie just like pressing
over
buttons.
time. Yeah, just like, oh, I see them doing that, so I'm gonna do it.
I'm reading on more in this article here, and it's talking about how the landlord claimed that it was Annie Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, and I quote, "She or whoever that poltergeist may have been did obviously not like the 1970s radio program."
She's like, put on that, hello my baby, hello my honey.
She's like, the fuck is this shit?
I'm pretty
Switches
sure
the channel.
The song that we're singing is from like 1940. So
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
that makes it even fucking funnier.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that like this is pretty much kind of bullshit that the landlord and owner kind of sparked up, because the quote unquote sightings of Annie did a really good job.
It's tourism, baby.
Yeah,
it's capitalism, baby.
And it was so popular at one point that the pub changed its name to Jack the Ripper.
Oh, yeah, I was reading about that. I was wondering which bar that was.
Kind of fucked, but they've since renamed it back to the 10 Bells once again. And
oh, that's so funny.
I don't know. But they've apparently had trouble with other ghosts from that century as well.
Uh-huh.
Among them, apparently a ghostly old man, but there's like no connection to it being Jack the Ripper, so I don't know. This was just another man. Like whatever. Yeah.
It's fucking Kosminski eating out of their fucking gutters.
It's Henry Hawker.
It's Henry Hawker. Oh, I have to tell you guys, sorry, before we go any further, I know what Hawker means.
Oh, please share. Please share.
So, hawking is a term used for people who aggressively sell items.
Oh.
So I'm assuming Henry the Hawker was some type of a merchant. And he got this nickname because he was probably very pushy.
Okay.
So
I'm still just gonna picture him with a huge fucking nose.
He might have a big nose, honestly. But I thought that was hilarious when I found that out, because this whole time we're like, Henry the Hawker! And it's like a legitimate thing.
I think we also have referred to him as Harry the Hawker as well.
I don't know if it's Harry or Henry. I don't remember, okay? Doesn't matter at this point. He was the client of a poor sex worker who was murdered. Yeah. The client doesn't matter.
Who gives a fuck about Hawker, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But we'll move on to the next ghost, and this is probably my favorite sighting, I guess.
Okay.
Just because it seems eerie to me, and it's something I think a lot of people have also reported throughout time, not specifically to this victim, but just like in other circumstances.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about Mary Jane Kelly, the last canonical victim. And it's said that she used to also drink in and stand outside the 10 Bells to attract customers. And she lived in Miller's Court off of Dorset Street.
Okay.
And she had a room there, right? Which she was killed in on the morning of November 9th, 1888. And it said that in the following months after her murder, she could still be seen kind of just like strolling around the area.
Oh, interesting.
But the part that gets me is that several witnesses actually claim to have seen and spoken to Mary Kelly on the morning of November 9th, when in fact she had already been murdered.
Oh.
Man,
so you know likely, how trippy that would be?
Right? It's likely that they were speaking to her ghost. But
I would, like, blow a fucking gasket if I met someone and then, like, the next day found out that they had been murdered a week before. I'd shit myself.
I've heard instances of this happening before to other people. So I like that idea. That
I honestly don't doubt that happened, too.
Especially since her murder was so traumatic and gruesome and terrible. It makes sense for her to linger.
And if the killer did use chloroform or something that made them knock out so they weren't aware that they died, even more so, then I could see their ghosts lingering because they probably aren't aware that they died.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's exactly the case, too, is she just was not aware of what had happened. She had probably just, like, gone about her day like she normally would, and surprise!
Oh.
It's 7:30.
Scared the hell out of me. Oh my god.
So, I'm happy to say that really is all of the sightings we've had of Mary Jane Kelly. So, hopefully she found some sort of peace that she needed and kind of went on her way. Because all of her sightings were literally, like, right then and there at that time.
Yeah.
So.
I have two things to say. One is going to sound very unrelated at first. So, 2 days ago, I watched Corpse Bride for the first time in a really long time. And, in Corpse Bride, obviously, you guys know, that is a Tim Burton film. So it's, like, all creepy, spooky, you know? And in that film, when Victor goes to the underworld, basically, or wherever the dead are living, all those people are essentially slowly decaying away. And they look like how they did when they were first dead. So however they died, they go into the afterworld looking like that and then slowly decay into bones. So here's my thing. I'm glad it wasn't like that for her. Because imagine how horrifying it would be to see her walking around like that picture of her death. That would be so incredibly disturbing. So I'm glad that if in those cases, if that was actually her as a ghost, it was her normal.
Yeah, I agree. That would have been very traumatizing for people.
But also imagine if, like, I don't know, she somehow saw her ghost reflection or some shit, and I don't know.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Yeah. I don't know. That's just me, like, completely overthinking it. But, I just thought I would say that in case... I don't know. I don't know why I said that. But my other thing is adding on top of these stories and stuff. We've talked about my grandmother, your grandmother, multiple times. But my grandmother... She did a past life regression.
Okay.
And she believes that she was one of the victims of Jack the Ripper.
Interesting.
However, she claims that when he came up behind her, he hit her in the back of the head with a bag full of sand. And knocked her out and killed her.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's all I got. It's just really interesting.
You're like, that's all I got, but...
just...
My grandmother says she was killed by Jack the Ripper because he hit her in the back of the head with sand.
Well, yeah, I don't know. You'd have to ask her. But she basically was like, I remember walking down this dark, like, corridor area, and somebody ran up behind me, and they hit me really hard in the back of the head with a bag of sand, and then they murdered me. And she thinks it was Jack the Ripper.
I mean, hey, anything's possible.
But yeah, I don't know. It was just interesting to hear. Because like I said, if he hit people with something, they would have blunt force trauma if he hit them hard enough. But even if he didn't hit them that hard, they probably still would have had like a welt or bruising or something like that. But most of the most of the injuries happened after they were already dead. So I don't know. I'm just throwing random shit out there at this point.
It's food for thought, for sure. We have just like a couple more. Okay. And the last of them aren't too crazy. Oh, Jesus. Another one is the ghost of a woman named Elizabeth Stride, who was the first victim on the night of the double murder. Killed on September 30th, 1888. And she was the one who suffered probably the least mutilation because Jack was interrupted in the middle of what he was doing. And it's said that months after she was murdered, in that spot, you could hear on Burner Street screams of someone basically screaming bloody murder.
Oh.
Like, repeatedly. Like, each night, she screamed for her life.
Oh my god.
So, that one seems residual to me, if anything, but I hope she has found peace. That's literally all we have. The next one is Catherine Eddowes, the second victim on the night of the double murder. And you can usually see not a clear picture of Catherine, but you can kind of see this strange glowing red, not like an orb, but like spectral figure on the corner where she died every year on the night of her death. So that is also very interesting. And that's pretty much all I have. I mean, a couple of other people have reported, of course, seeing Jack the Ripper, but
yeah, I know.
You don't know what Jack the Ripper looked like. We don't fucking know who Jack the Ripper is.
Yeah, exactly. So, he wore very common clothes.
Yeah, so I'm not even going to talk about those because they can literally just be hauntings of some random white dude just walking up and down a corner, which just happens to be somewhere that Jack the Ripper committed some crime, or...
Yeah, because they it was so hard for them to find suspects because the dude was literally wearing what everybody else was wearing. He literally had no defining, like, significant traits.
Yeah, no, there was nothing special about this person whatsoever. So, that's it. That's all I got. I'm not even going to go into it because if you think about it, how long that London has been a blossoming fucking civilization. Mm-hmm. Like, somebody has had to have died on every square fucking inch of that place.
Yeah, that shit's probably haunted as hell. That shit has more dead people than living people.
Yeah, it actually does. So, have you ever heard of the catacombs? Like...
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's kind of where I'm prepared to end this series, is just kind of more mystery,
We will really literally never know who Jack the Ripper is. And I'm telling you, if people are like, we have conclusive evidence, conclusive DNA, a journal from my great-great-grandfather, fuck that shit. It is so far in the damn past that anything they're giving us now has to 100% be biased in some way.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that fact. So, yeah, everyone, that concludes our Halloweek coverage of Jack the Ripper.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I just want to say a quick thank you to everyone who has stuck around to listen to each one of these episodes.
Yeah.
If you've made it through and listened every single day, I feel like you deserve some kind of reward. I don't even know. Like,
I mean, we're not going to give you anything.
No, we're actually not going to.
You deserve some kind of reward.
But you deserve a gold star.
So maybe treat yourself to, like, your favorite restaurant, or...
Treat yourself for us saying you did a good job.
Or if you're like us and struggling with life, maybe smile while you're filling up your gas tank instead of crying as the numbers increase.
Or you could do a little and crack a cold one.
Do a little dancey dance. I don't know. Do something.
All I know is that I just cracked this fucking Jack Daniels cocktail that I've had sitting in my room for the past 6 fucking months. And I don't think I'm going to drink it, but I'm definitely probably going to go smoke some weed to celebrate.
We'll wrap it on the fact that she cracked open a Jack as we wrapped up Jack.
I didn't even realize I cracked a Jack to end Jack.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it there.
I was planning it too. Man. I didn't even realize, and I planned it.
Jesus.
That's crazy.
So on that note, if you're not already, follow us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram and kind of TikTok. We're there, but we don't fucking do anything. You can find us at Wading Into the Void. If you feel so inclined to support us, especially after this complete energy-draining week of Halloweek, if you want to support us on Patreon, you can find us by searching Wading Into the Void. Of course, we expect nothing, but oh my, would it be appreciated. And
we could buy ourselves chilies. Where did that come from? I don't know. Yeah, I thought you said chilies.
Salty.
I'm so salty. Guys, I gotta tell you this before we go because I'm pissed the fuck off. I ordered chilies like almost an hour and a half before we were set to record. And of course I ordered express to you. Said it came like 10 minutes earlier than it said it would. And I was waiting 30 minutes past the delivery date and they were like, let's cancel the order. So I didn't get my fucking
She was
chilies.
so mad.
And I wanted to cry as soon as we started recording. So, there's that.
On that note.
And now I'm about to eat KFC. KFC sponsor us.
Good enough, right? All right. I don't know how to end this. This has just been so much fucking information.
Yeah.
But I guess don't claim that any random spirit on the street is Jack the Ripper. Mm-hmm. Don't talk about Henry or Harry the Hawker and make fun of him until you know that a hawker's an actual thing. And most importantly, don't tell every single one of your listeners to go look at a portrait of a dead woman. Goodbye, everyone.
I didn't know! Goodbye!